Okay, now I'll call to one of these days, Maria, I'm gonna not talk until I see you hit the button. I only have one more chance of that, so I probably won't learn that by tomorrow. Calling to order the Finance Committee meeting on Monday, March 13th at 4 o'clock. It is remote participation via Zoom, so we get the fun script for remotely conducted open meetings. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronow, Chair of the Finance Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative, starting with Peter.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
Jeremy.
Here.
Yeah, Joanna.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Brian.
In attendance, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Maria. Here. Susan.
Here.
Andrew.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. We're convening by Zoom, so anything that you have on your screen could get recorded, so be aware of that. I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After the remarks, I will ask the members, inviting them to comment, question, or make a motion. Please hold until your name is called. Don't forget to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And all votes taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So with that, I'm going to look for a approval of the agenda.
I'll move.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. I am going to open it up for public comment. And close it for public comment. And now it's review, discussion, and potential adoption of motions for the following town meeting warrant articles. And we have Mr. Vorse here to help talk to us about these particular articles. And we will start with Article 40, zoning bylaw amendment, time sharing or time interval ownership dwelling unit or dwelling.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see you. So the planning board has finalized its motions on all of the remaining articles, and they are going to be adopting comments tonight. So Article 40, the first one, was submitted by the planning board, and their motion here is not to adopt. And the reason for that is the general, I guess, deference of discussions related to fractional ownership, short-term rentals is going to occur at the special town meeting. And there needed to be a little bit more thought before we adopt a change here. So that was the feeling of the board. That was unanimous. Pretty much what their comment will say.
Okay, questions for Andrew? So my question, Andrew, is that, so the planning board put this in and changed their mind, basically?
There was an incident that was happening that that some members felt the need to respond to immediately, and with the window closing for town meeting, you only have that time to put something forward. So yes, long answer to your question.
Okay, no, just checking, because otherwise to put in their own motion and say not to adopt seems ironic. So any other questions or comments? Joe?
Yeah, so Andrew, I think I had heard about this incident, that there's a development that is attempting to use some sort of fractional or time interval ownership. So what's happening with that? Is it stayed somehow, or is this particular developer going to be able to go ahead, or I don't know. Anyway, what's the scoop there?
It's a complicated question. It depends a lot on how it's used. it's a little bit, you know, they're attempting to sell, you know, fractional pieces of ownership, and a lot depends on how it's managed and what ends up happening. So that you know, if it meets the law and doesn't sort of stray into these other areas, that would be allowed to continue. And it's, again, there's a question of whether this type of a bylaw belongs in a general bylaw or in a zoning bylaw, because sometimes it's not easy in zoning, because there's a thing called the uniformity provision that applies to all zoning bylaws that may not match what's going on here. Have many instances where, you know, there's fractional ownership of family units or among partners or extended families. So again, that has to be thought through in a zoning bylaw.
Other questions for Andrew? In which case do we have any other comments from the public before I close the public discussion on this? Oh, Peter.
Yes, Andrew. So this comes to town meeting, and even though you guys aren't endorsing it one way or the other, it's still going to be voted on. So what is the planning board's plan of action for that?
If it's called, Peter, it might not.
If
be
it's called, yeah.
So if it's called, I mean, board's plan is basically what I said, is that, you know, there's going to be a much more detailed discussion about this general type of ownership at the special town meeting. The short-term work, oh, you're part of that group, right? The short-term.
Yeah. No, I'm concerned more about if it's called and voted on, it could get passed, you know, regardless.
It will take a 2/3 majority vote to pass. And it, you know, it potentially could.
Are you guys planning on speaking more than just saying you want to delay it to the second town meeting?
I would say yes. There has to be much more thought about, you know, what the final language would say in order to not snare, you know, people that are not operating a sort of corporate type operation here into it. So that's what it comes down to.
Okay, I'm just, you know, I think we're all confused on how this is going to work. So I'm just trying to see what your point of view is on it. That's all. It will be interesting.
Do we have a sense of the order of magnitude issue this represents?
In terms of, is there a huge demand for that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just curious, are there any metrics, any data whatsoever around this issue?
Aware of this first particular project that has come up on MetaView. That's the only one that we're aware of.
And how, just rough, in that project, how many units is it? And do we know how many people they want to own all those units?
I believe it's 8. There's eight sort of shares.
8 shares. Yes, it's one house with 8 shares.
And they have sold some of them, I've seen in the paper.
I think half, right?
Yeah.
Or 6, maybe even.
And how does that differ in the fractional ownership that's in town that has had a sign there forever on Center Street?
There was time sharing. The time sharing bylaw was passed in the 80s, so there were pre-existing non-conforming timeshares that operated. There's some in Mattakit, in the townhouses. They're at different locations. So there's, you know, the traditional. Actually, the Nantucket Inn was a timeshare as well. So there are different timeshares that are operating prior to the adoption of the bylaw, and timeshares are allowed in commercial districts. So the one in town actually would be allowed. Now, fractional ownership per se is not not restricted under the zoning bylaw. This is a proposal to add that concept in to the bylaw.
I think it's unlikely to be called, to be honest. I think it would be the opposite. If it was forbidding it, then it would get called. So,
That's, whoops. That's the, Denise, that's the place where I'm confused, right? Because I also am concerned that people are going to misunderstand this and think that this could be for forbidding it. I think your point's well taken.
yeah, well, I mean, on the day, if someone calls it, then Andrew or John Trudell, he's still chair of the planning board, right, Andrew?
We'll be ready. Don't worry. We'll be ready.
Will leap up and explain that this was to add it and it isn't the right time to add it. The right time to add it will be in September or in November.
Well, given that our goal is to move this to the, down the road where the entire global situation is going to be evaluated, should we pass something just in the event this gets presented, suggesting that we elected to review it subsequently?
No, well, we would by definition, Jeremy, as an article is presented. And our motion in this case, because all we do is endorse or don't endorse unless we completely disagree with a planning board motion, but typically 99 times out of 100, you'll see the comment on the screen, which is, we're just making a comment. We're actually not even really making a motion, that we support the planning board motion. And the planning board motion is motion not to adopt.
Got it.
Yeah, so we will review it again when it comes back in a different format. And again, at the same time, we will either be supporting the planning board motion or disagreeing with it. So with that, is everyone ready to endorse the comment that they see on the screen or not?
Motion to support the planning board motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Being none, Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, aye, thank you. Okay, zoning bylaw amendment, off-street parking requirements.
So this particular article, I believe you all had questions or concerns about. The planning board has unanimously supported this article. And I think there's two main things in play here. Number one, there's been extensive research about communities that require too much parking, especially for housing that's needed on the affordable and accessible side. In fact, many states in in New England have done statewide bans preventing communities from overburdening their communities with excessive parking. The second part of this is that compared to single families, the proposed amendments that we've made make duplexes and garage apartments generally that are serving more of our affordable housing needs to be consistent. And again, not overburdening. Whereas a single family, for example, in the R5 district requires only one minimum space. Currently, a duplex with the same amount of bedrooms would require 6 spaces. So the aesthetics of that also create a box in a sea of gravel. And I think, that's the other part of this is in order to meet the requirement, you either have to go through an extensive waiver process or you do meet the requirement and end up with basically a building and a site that is just not attractive or someplace that people want to live. So this is a specific recommendation that came out of the housing production plan. So if there's any specific concerns, I'm happy to address the question. But the board, like I said, the board adopted this with very little input and no opposition. So.
Thank you. Questions for Andrew? Okay, in which case, Maria, could you scroll down? Oh, is there a question?
I could just sort of throw a comment in here. Wasn't this Chris Klowacki had concerns about this? I seem to remember the discussion.
I think it was Stephen, Joe.
Was
Stephen.
it Stephen?
Mhm.
I just can't remember exactly what, it had something to do with, I think, the issue of too much parking, or, but I don't, never mind. I'm sorry I shouldn't have opened my mouth on that one.
Yeah, I think it was Stephen, and I don't remember what the particular issue was, but that's why we pushed it over to not make a motion on the day. And I think it was something about in respect of, I don't know. I don't remember either, so I
I can't remember. I brought it up hoping one of you would remember, but.
Yeah.
It was Stephen, I believe,
Okay,
Stephen
no,
and or Chris. It could have been Chris as well.
okay. In
But
general,
they're here, so.
I accept Andrew's explanation and happy to go to a vote here. So,
Any other questions or comments? In which case, Joe, I'll let you go ahead and make the motion again.
motion to support the planning board.
Second,
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll change the order a bit. Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Peter,
aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Denise, I. Thank you. Okay,
Article 45. So this particular article, this was also submitted by the planning board, but our motion here is not to adopt. And based on some of the input that we got from the public at the hearing, these three particular properties, there wasn't, I guess, a complete agreement on what the appropriate zone these should be in would be. This is currently in a commercial zone now, RC2. It is essentially most of the pink area. So all of Salrose Road under another article will go to a commercial designation, which is C-Tech, and that reflects its current use. The other properties along Nobska, which I think is also on your list, 46, will go to residential. So it will leave these three properties in RC2 for now. And then we'll revisit that at a later town meeting. So we've done this in the past where we've given people time to either make additional plans or, finalize. Sometimes there's open permits or other issues that people need to work through before a zoning change is implemented. So in this case, the unanimous motion is moved not to adopt for 40.
okay. Questions for Andrew? In which case, can I please have a motion on the comment or whatever we're calling it?
Motion to support the planning board comment.
Thank you. And we have a second. Any further discussion on it? Seeing
Second.
none, I will have Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I. Thank you. Okay, so now
Area
we're
direct-
away. Yep.
Yep, directly east of that. So this is the balance of properties fronting onto Nobska Way, which is residential in nature, and R5 is the residential equivalent of RC2. So this unanimously recommended by the board to go from RC2 to R5.
And Andrew, when it says and or C-Tech,
When we're not sure exactly what people want, so the original article gives the option to, do some C-Tech or some R5, depending on what the feedback is from the neighborhood.
okay?
So here, and again, the final determination is made through the planning board motion. So here, the final motion is to R5 only.
Okay, so we take off and or C-Tech.
Yep.
All right, and it was a unanimous motion to adopt. Andrew. Okay. Questions, comments for Andrew?
Motion to adopt planning board comment.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Peter? Oh, further
Aye.
discussion on, wait a minute, sorry. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I. Okay, thank you. Zoning map change, RC2 to R20 and Lug 3, 91 and 95 Myacomet Avenue.
This unfortunately got delayed a little bit because of advertising, but this is property that the land bank has purchased at the end of Myacomet Ave. After they make a purchase like this, we generally want to adjust the zoning to reflect the nature of their purchase. And basically, I think as you all know by now, RC2 is a district we're phasing out. It's one of the highest density districts. This was a leftover piece at the end of Myacomet Ave. So the area in red, which has been directly purchased by the land bank, and it's going to be known as Austin Woods, and joined to the surrounding property, sort of to the south, to the, I guess, west and north, will go to LUG 3, and the remainder property will go to R20, which matches its neighbors in that sort of purpley area there.
Mhm.
That property does have a right of first refusal. And so in the future, hopefully the land bank will act on that, and then that whole area will be consolidated into the LUG 3. But now, this is a good removal of a high density area at the end of Myacomet Ave, and we're really, the zoning is just following the purchase by the land bank.
Okay, thank you. And I'm guessing it's motion to adopt.
Yes, that was unanimous. There was no opposition. We did, our original proposal, we did have a conversation with the property owner and adjusted it for their wishes, and that's the R20 portion.
Okay. Questions for Andrew?
Motion to support the planning board motion?
Second,
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Peter?
aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. 50, zoning map change for a whole bunch of streets. I'll let you talk, Andrew.
So this particular area is in the R1 zoning district right now. R1 is a district being phased out, and the equivalent again to R1 on the residential side is R5. So the majority of this area goes from R1 to R5, which is the same basic lot size, and is, is an extension of the existing R5 that you can see at the corner of Sparks and Williams has been implemented. Commercial part, so the area outlined in green, it would go to Commercial Mid-Island, which is that area of blue to the, I guess, southeast. That's the Commons development, so that corner would be consistent with the zoning across the street at the Commons. The CN designation is the area outlined in purple, and that's, again, equivalent to the area across the street where the Boys and Girls Club, Outdoor Power, and some of that area is. So this was a unanimous vote of the board. There was no opposition expressed to this by anyone in the area.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, further discussions on that? Seeing none. Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Peter?
aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay. Article 55, zoning bylaw amendment, swimming pool residential.
So now we're moving into the citizen articles here. This particular article, the board had discussion with the sponsor, asked for certain materials to justify, this particular change about, for example, the number of minimum lot sizes or the number of properties that were under the minimum, and any sort of information that might justify the difference in the setbacks in terms of noise. There really wasn't information that the board felt compelling, forthcoming about that, and There wasn't a final opportunity to have a discussion. The applicant did not show at that most recent meeting. I don't know what there was some confusion on our part, and then we continued this to give her a chance to come forward, and that didn't happen. And with time ticking, very stern talking to from you, Denise, about us getting done, we decided that this was a move not to adopt.
Any comments or questions from the board? Of the committee, actually, from finance committee members?
No.
Okay,
This is sort of connected to the noise article in the sense that it's trying to create bigger setbacks in certain of the smaller zoning areas, smaller zoned areas.
that was my understanding of the discussion at the time of the noise bylaw.
Yeah.
Citizens bylaw, yes.
We just add these range, the size of the lots here range from, quarter to full, slightly under an acre. So it's not, board, and the board was supportive of this in the 5,000 square foot lot areas, but
But R10 is 10,000 square feet, correct?
it's 10, 20, and 40,000 square foot
Okay.
lot areas in these.
Confirming. Any other questions or comments? No, in which case may I have a motion? And the
Motion.
planning board motion is motion not to adopt.
Motion to support the planning board.
Okay. and
Motion.
second? Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I. Thank you. Linda Williams, zoning bylaw, accessory uses.
Article 58. This basically adds language to the definition of accessory uses, which so accessory uses are now, in addition to principal building structures or uses permitted in a district, there shall be allowed in that district as accessory uses that are subordinate and customarily incident to such permitted uses. So the language that's being added here would be including but not limited to the rental rooms within an owner occupied dwelling.
Mhm.
So this is related to specifically to the housing production plan that said that long-standing allowance of renting rooms by homeowners needed to be protected in the bylaw, because this general provision allows the building commissioner to make such a determination, but it was felt that it should be specifically called out, and it specifically is identified as such in bylaws across the state. So I think you know that many homeowners that live on Nantucket may rent rooms in their homes during the summer to supplement their income and basically cover mortgage costs. The definition of an owner occupied is an existing definition in the zoning bylaw. So I'm not sure, this was unanimously supported by the board. And the board does not feel it's related to short-term rentals in any significant way, since somewhere between 96 and 97% of short-term rentals are done for whole house rentals, not individual rooms.
Mhm. My understanding of this, Andrew, is it just codifies a practice that happens all the time and happens across the state, and it's just being explicitly added to this, so there's no debate in a future time.
Right. Or lawsuits by neighbors or others, challenging that. So
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Andrew?
The planning board's motion was to support.
yes, move to adopt, and that was unanimous.
Okay, in which case, may I have a motion?
Motion to support the planning board.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Peter. Oh, sorry, Peter. I'll go to Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy. Okay, we're losing Jeremy. Joanna.
Aye.
And Jeremy. Can you hear me? Denise.
Aye, sorry.
Okay,
guys.
good. That's
Sorry.
okay. All right, good. Thank you. Article 62, zoning bylaw amendment, pre-existing non-conforming uses, structures, and lots.
Okay, so this particular article, the board considered both articles somewhat together. They're both interrelated. So Article 62, the board's motion is moved not to adopt. The proposal basically creates a direct conflict between state law and our local bylaw. In other words, state law allows you to create, basically, if you have structures on a lot that existed prior to the adoption of subdivision control, which is 1955, you're eligible to put those on a separate lot. So this does is delete that reference from our zoning, which in essence doesn't change the state law. It just means that it's not included in our zoning anymore. So it can happen, but it's just now not specifically identified in the zoning. So not in favor of this particular approach under 62. There's some changes that we discussed under 63 that I can talk about there, but essentially this proposal is not supported by the board, and that was unanimous.
What was the logic of this? What was the sponsor hoping to achieve with this, Andrew? I guess because I didn't watch the planning board meeting, so.
Well, I think that they don't like this particular provision of state law. And I think there's some reasoning for that we'll talk about under 63. But again, whether you like it or not, any community that has adopted subdivision control has to live under this. So then it's a matter of how you deal with it, moving forward from, in your zoning. And it creates a situation where it's allowed under the state, but then you have to, I guess you would have to attempt to go and get a variance from the zoning board for something that the state allows. It's a bad practice in our view that, to have laws competing against each other like that.
Let's talk about 63 then before we make a comment on this one, just to put the two together. That'd be great.
Sure.
Please.
So 63 had some portions of it that were of interest, I guess, to the board. And that basically what this would do would be to allow, that, or to recognize that the state law, authorizes the creation of these lots, but under certain circumstances would put additional conditions on for a special permit or other things related to what is then built on that lot or how the existing structures are modified. So it's something that we had some comments with the sponsor on, but could not basically come to an agreement on this. The board basically moved not to adopt here, but did commit to bringing something forward at the special town meeting in the fall.
Okay. So basically, just help me understand this. This will be fun at town meeting if somebody calls both these articles.
Yeah.
The first one wants to do away with a law that's allowed by the state. The second one says if that doesn't really happen, then by the way, any structures that are referred to in the first one at least and that were non-conforming now need a special permit to stay non-conforming. Did I?
Yes. There is some validity to we give a certain allowance for ground cover based on, for non-conforming lots. That's something that,
Right,
and we think that may be too generous in some instances here. We haven't seen that actually yet, but it's something that we think could be worked into. You know, I guess part of this is we would really like people to bring their ideas ahead of time. We would work with them to come up with proposals. But sometimes, like when this is submitted, it's really difficult to get to work backwards with it. So
okay,
we see merit in 63, but again, it needs some further thought and development of language that works. That we're not going to be able to do with what was submitted.
and the idea is that by the special town meeting, most likely we could get to something that would work. The planning
Yes.
board plus the sponsor could come up with a way forward that would achieve the outcomes intended and at the same time not be punitive or in contradiction with the state.
And that way, people who are actually affected would have, you know, more of a chance to understand how it affects their property as well.
Okay. Any other questions? I've been hogging Andrew. So any other questions from the committee? Okay, in which case the planning board said motion not to adopt on both articles 62 and 63. We can do them together unless the committee has an appetite to do them twice. So
Motion to support the planning board on articles 62 and 63.
thank you.
Second.
Okay, any further comments on those? Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
I'm gonna abstain.
okay. Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I. Okay, thank you. All right, and the last one, zoning map change, R20 to R10.
This article submitted by Ms. Williams for family members in this kind of triangular area along Old South Road. So this is one of the last of the R20 zoned properties along Old South Road. And when the board looks at potential zoning changes, that increased density, which is what would happen here, they look at the surrounding area and look for fairness, look for location of the land in relation to utilities and transportation and those kind of things. So basically this area along Old South Road is bordered to the north by property that's zoned in R5 or 5,000 square foot residential areas. To the west is the Richmond development, which is substantially higher density than that. And the area along Daffodil Lane, Mayflower, Evergreen, even though it's in the R20 district, much of that area has been, they've created co-ops, and we've passed articles that allow condominiums, which essentially comes up with an R10 zoning area there. So this particular area, the area that's zoned R40 is actually owned by the land bank as sort of a linear park area to connect the general neighborhood there to Old South Road. The board considered the fact that this is in the sewer district, that there is year-round bus service, that there is bike paths, and found that a fair, there was some that suggested R5 would be a more appropriate zoning district, but that somewhere in the middle at R10 was a reasonable dedication for this area as it develops out.
So Andrew, the houses, the lots that do not abut Old South Road would be split into two effectively. How do they get in and out of their property?
Actually file for a subdivision in order to create frontage, which they only have access via an easement that comes from, I don't know, some of you that have been on the FinCom a long time may remember we had multiple articles over the years about Miller Lane. And you see where that little tiny adjustment is there at the bottom?
Mhm.
So that's the end of the public road right there. So from that point, those lots in the back are pre-existing non-conforming lots that have access via an easement. So any attempt to subdivide those would have to file a subdivision, an actual subdivision to extend the road on their own property.
So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 10. So it'd be 20 lots instead of the 10 lots it is right now, effectively.
It could be that much, yep. Not everyone, not everyone goes to the absolute minimum, but it's possible.
Okay,
And
go ahead, Jeremy.
didn't we discuss this a few weeks ago?
Yes.
We did, and Stephen had questions about the density, increasing the density, and that's why it was held over to now. Although we do not have Stephen. So, yes, we did.
So basically, the little yellow line with a cul-de-sac with additional requests could be extended to be the road for another 20 homes.
Well, anything that abuts Old South Road would be able to go exit onto Old South Road,
Right.
as it must now for the 2 houses that exist.
Right. They have existing driveways, and then there's 5 lots that have direct access to Old South Road right now.
It's the 3 on the bottom. that
And
would-
so just because I'm a little bit confused right now, the language in this is allowing for more density or prohibiting the density?
It allows for more density, so by changing from R20 to R10, it
Okay.
basically allows for more density. It goes from 20,000 square foot lots to 10,000. But as you look at this map, this would be an isolated island of 20,000 in the middle of 5 and 10,000 square foot zoning,
Got it.
which I would say, think about the fairness of that. I mean, this is a leftover from an earlier time.
And what was the consensus of the planning board on this?
Unanimously supported.
And there was no concern over increased density?
Not in this location, no.
What about the traffic, Andrew?
It's going to be terrible.
On Old South Road, with or without this particular proposal, we have submitted to the town on various occasions an Old South Road corridor improvement plan
Yeah.
that has not received support. With that plan, there would be an opportunity to significantly improve traffic. But there's other options here that aren't in other locations, such as year-round bus service, fully developed bike paths,
Sewer.
sidewalks and other access to commercial developments. So again, if you look across the island and decide that there has to be some areas of where density is allowed, and again, just look at the yellow areas, which are R5, the pink areas RC2, which is 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Driveways out onto Old South Road, having a throughway there doesn't help traffic either. It just encourages more speed.
Right.
So this change is potentially going to put up an additive, what, 10 or 20 homes?
It's already allowed for 10, so it would allow 10 additional.
Andrew, just as a philosophical thing, I have no trouble with supporting the planning board on this particular one, but given the sort of general furor on the island about, let's not increase density, we need to do whatever we can to hold the line on increasing density.
Yep.
Does the planning board tend to look at these things and again, it sounds like that the thinking was sort of an equity that all these other lots around this island have been allowed to subdivide and people have been able to develop additional homes and obviously make money doing that. And that it's sort of unfair to the owners of these 10 lots to not allow them to subdivide them. I mean, at some point, if we're all serious about, holding line on density, don't we just have to say no to people? I mean,
Well, I think the master plan really addresses that issue, Joe. I think that we identified areas where growth is appropriate. That's called the town overlay district, and that's where water and sewer and everything is. We haven't talked about the other articles that are included in this town meeting that, where the land bank has purchased property, where we're reducing density on all those other outlying properties. A great example is the RC2 on Mycomet Ave. That was a substantially sized lot that the density there is not going to be realized. And I think all of our actions overall show that we've reduced density across the island. But that doesn't mean that we can't, we do have a housing issue and we do have a housing production area that makes sense. And I find I'm hard pressed to say that leaving, a half-acre island in the middle of this does anything towards the overall density. I think that this is an appropriate area. I agree with the planning board's ruling here. Reductions in density should come out of the country overlay area, which again was a policy level decision that we all made at town meeting through the master plan.
Right.
fair
Andrew,
enough.
Denise?
Yeah, Joanna?
Andrew, I don't necessarily disagree. The problem that I really have is that these houses won't be affordable. Right? So we're creating a density problem with houses that are not going to be affordable when, as we all know, we have an affordable housing program. And so that's the bummer of doubling the density here.
They could be affordable if if resources were put to purchase them. And there are family members who are building housing for, grandchildren and others, and that's affordable for them. So I understand, but what we don't do contract zoning here and say, we'll change your unfair position if you, turn over rights to the town.
Yes, I appreciate that, but I am sympathetic to also what Joe said. At a certain point, if we're really recognizing this as a problem that we're going to deal with, there is going to come a time where we're just going to say no and not change the zoning.
I agree. And I mean, this isn't, they're not asking for R5, which I think they could justify based on the surrounding area.
Right.
It's a middle ground between half acre and R10. So I totally agree with you that, and there are some areas like in Appleton and others that the zoning has to go the other way. But again, we're doing that. And it's like, we spend almost no time talking about that. And, lots of time on something like this, but again, taking the whole picture in, I think is important here. And it's, a 10,000 square foot lot is reasonable density. 5,000, I think, would be too high.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So basically the impact on the island, the planning board didn't look necessarily at the increment from this one recommendation, but rather relied just on the master plan. So the fact that this may add another 10, or if it were affordable housing, maybe even more dwellings and all the extra traffic, that wasn't really taken into account.
I think we balanced it because we balanced it with the other land that's taken off, that becomes permanent open space, or where we've actually increased or lowered the density in the appropriate areas. So.
But are those areas already populated, or you're just removing them from being built upon?
We just talked about them. They're not built upon yet. We
Yeah.
just did them on Article,
Right.
right? So Article 48.
There are some other areas that, have homes that are being removed, so, or lots that, I mean, this isn't totally built either, so it's the same type of land. I don't understand.
I think when you look at this land and the location and what's around it, it's appropriate to make the lot smaller and put more houses on it. It would actually look, I don't think you're gonna find people that want to spend and build this giant house in this location, right on Old South Road, surrounded by two major developments. So I think to make it work, it really makes sense to do what you're doing.
Further?
This was motion to adopt, right, Andrew?
Yes,
Okay. Motion to support the planning board.
Second,
Okay, any further discussions on the motion? Okay, in which case, Peter, Joe,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, I. Thank you. And then, thank you, Andrew. And
very
then,
much, appreciate it.
Thanks,
And-
Andrew.
Andrew, do we
Thanks,
still
Andrew.
have 3 more tomorrow with you? Is that my understanding?
Done,
Oh, they're done.
that's it.
Okay, thank you. Joe. I think I'll call and crab at you more often. Now, it's good to know my crabbing had some outcome. Good. We will miss you terribly tomorrow, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you for pushing this over the line for us. We
thanks,
appreciate it.
Andrew.
Thanks,
Andrew.
bye-bye.
Okay, item number 6, review, discussion, and potential option of motion for town meeting, Article 29, rescind unused borrowing authority, which we moved over from last Thursday. Okay, Brian,
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this article would, with town meeting approval, would allow us to, would rescind the entirety of the list of borrowings on the schedule here. Majority of them are airport. Most of them are either concluded or close to conclusion and have grant money received or have had retained earnings put into them to satisfy any of the necessary pay down of the bands. In the case of the water, there's a few projects that never actually needed to be done and got off the ground, specifically the 2 L8 feeder projects. We authorized those at previous town meetings, and since L8, excuse me, feeder project went above ground, there's no real need to keep those open. So this will rescind all of the authorizations in these amounts on all the borrowings. We've reviewed them to make sure there's no outstanding costs, and these amounts we can rescind and then turn over to our financial advisors to update the official statement for borrowing authorizations. And I will note the largest one on there is the Nantucket Harbor Shimo Sewer Infill Project. If everyone remembers, we authorized that at just over $41 million, and the project came in substantially less, and we're able to rescind well over half of that borrowing authorization since it was not needed for the project.
questions for Brian? Jeremy?
Yeah, Brian, so the amounts listed here are effectively the amount saved versus what was expected.
It's the amount that was not needed under the borrowing authorization, either because the project came in lower or performed better during the life of it. So these amounts were not needed and were never borrowed or financed. Or some of them, in terms of the airport, they were originally a borrowing authorization was done and then ultimately was just paid for through a retained earnings transfer. And so we're closing them out.
What percentage of all projects, capital projects, come in under budget like this?
Right now, not very many, Jeremy. So,
I was just curious, Brian.
probably 10 or 12% if maxed out, it depends on the type of project. For example, most of our horizontal roadway or utility work generally has performed better than anticipated. Most of our vertical work, being building construction, has performed or costed more than anticipated in a lot of instances, just because of the differences in the constructions.
Thank you.
Brian, just a quick, Brian, on the airport taxiway resurfacing,
Mhm.
that rescission was that due to the fact that the FAA ended up paying the bulk of that project?
was due to
And
the
we only
fact
had to
that-
kick in our 15% or whatever it was?
It was actually due to the fact that the entirety of the project was covered by the FAA, and we received sufficient grant coverage as we proceeded through the project to be able to rescind that now that the project is close to completion.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Brian? In which case, may I have the motion that you see on the screen?
Motion to rescind as designated.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussions on the motion?
Would that technically just be motion to adopt the article? Sorry to be or is the motion to rescind, or is the motion just to adopt the article?
The
be
finance
picky on the
committee motion
language.
is to rescind the finance committee recommends rescinding the unused. Maria, can you put it back up so Joe can see the comment or the motion? Please. Move that the unused borrowing authority for the following projects be rescinded.
Okay, got it. My bad.
That's okay. So it's not motion to rescind the article, it's motion to rescind the borrowing. So, is that your motion, Joe?
Oh, yeah. I didn't think I made the first, yeah, motion to
Or
rescind.
Peter
Sorry.
made the first one.
Peter made it.
Okay.
I'll just second it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? No? Okay. Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay. Motion to adopt, basically. Our next meeting is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. It is our last meeting that we have to finish with the number of articles. Give me 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 3 tomorrow, according to my count. I think we have 15 left open, and there will be 3 to do. Tomorrow is a hybrid meeting. Can I count on the cast of characters we have now to show up, that we have a quorum?
Yes.
I will be
I'll be
there.
there.
Okay, good. All right. So I would hate to not have a quorum for the last day. That would be, yeah.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make sure there are 5 for tomorrow. We have 5.
5. Okay, thank you, Maria. All right, it's 5 for tomorrow. So, okay. I think with that, I think we're all set. May I, anybody have any committee reports? Nope. Any other business? Nope.
Nope.
Okay, thanking Brian, Maria, and Susan as always, and may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Denise, I thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
See everybody tomorrow.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
See you,
you.
Brian.